or any of your favorite app. After a while, the app is recommending things for you. Okay, or you go browse for something, in Amazon, and the Amazon is recommending something for you, right? And it's recommending things based even on your past purchases, right? So there is essentially a recommendation system at work, and if you look at it, it is also based on AI and machine learning. Okay. Last but not the least, face detection system, right? So you know that, right? Previously, to gain access or to put attendance, people's names were called. People used to put signatures. Then came fingerprint, right? Access cards, and now we are talking of face detection. Okay, and even that people are kind of fooling the system in the sense people just used to show photos, of themselves and used to gain access. Today, AI is developed to such an extent, it waits for an eye blink. Okay, it waits for the eyes to blink before detecting someone's facial features and allowing that person inside or not allowing that person. Right. So these are some of the application areas. We are going to see more of that, in the coming uh, sessions, right? And if you see, as per the World Economic Forum report also, the new type of jobs that are going to be created will all have a strong AI component. The old type of jobs are still going to be there, okay, like data entry, accounting, factory engineers, quality control. Those type of jobs are going to be there, but the number of such jobs are going to be fewer, right? So students who gain an understanding of this technology early in life really stand to gain. So which is why, you have done the right thing, right? You're learning it because you're either going to be a practitioner or you're going to be an end user. So either way, AI is going to touch you. So now let's look at, having understood what is AI, let's look at the history of artificial intelligence, right? As you can see here, the timeline, okay, it's been around long time, right? 1950, so nearly 70 years. But what is it that has happened in the last few years that people are talking about it? Have you ever wondered? Any thoughts on that? Why is it that people are talking about it now when the technology has been around from the 50s? Any
It was not widely available.
yeah, yes,
The
that's
biggest
one.
advancements have happened now. Yeah.
Sorry, come again.
The biggest advancements of artificial intelligence have happened now.
Like what?
Um, I don't know. We've been applying it a lot to like agriculture. I know that.
I
Um,
see. Yes, the application is enhanced. My question is, it's been around for 70 odd years, right? If you see, there are different technologies that have cropped up. Why is it that it suddenly come to life?
I think that it's because we started having like more movies and other social aspects where they started introducing AI and how it like the futuristic world and how we don't have to do much and the robots do everything for us.
Right. See, but that kind of thoughts have been around for a little longer. It's not today. Okay. So what I want you to do is keep that question at the back of your mind. Okay. You're going to uncover that during the course of this session as to why that this technology that's been around since 50s has suddenly come to life, right? So not just in the US, everywhere, people are talking about it. So keep that question at the back of your mind. You're going to uncover. Okay. So we're going to come back to this question at multiple points in time. So in the course of this, after going through, if you're reading somewhere, just keep that, at the back of your mind. Let's see, what kind of answers we can uncover. And we will keep coming back to this question, right? So you see, it started with 50, right? Something called as a Turing test. It is like if there is an AI system, how accurate is that AI system? Is it to an extent that a human being will mistake an AI system to be a human? That's what is known as a Turing test. Okay, this is developed in the 50s. In fact, that test is still kind of holding true in the sense that no one has built an AI system to convincingly beat the Turing test. That means no one has developed an AI system which makes a human being think that it is the system, the so-called AI system is actually human, right? So we haven't come to the level of human potential, right? So AI systems are developed, but it is not operating yet at the level of human intelligence, right? And in fact, if you see 1956, the term artificial intelligence was coined by John McCarthy. Okay, and then the machine learning algorithms happened. If you see, this is the WABOT, right? That was developed in the 70s. 70s to 90s, many developments were taking place, right? But it's all small scale. People are trying to build on whatever happened, but nothing earth shaking happened during that. And then this is Deep Blue, right? This is a computer system actually beat a grandmaster, a chess grandmaster, right? How long do you think someone needs to train to become a grandmaster?
10 years or more.
10 years, okay. Any other number?
I guess they just have to train for their whole life, basically, just because
Yeah, right,
they have to be like the best of the best to actually be a world chess champion.
right, right. So typically they take anywhere between 12 to 15 years, okay. So imagine a computer system actually beating, that's a big event, right? So that is the Deep Blue developed by IBM that happened in the late 90s, right? Then early 2000s, many of these companies started using, right? And we are now at the forefront of AI revolution, right? So this has been the history of artificial intelligence. Okay, so this is the Turing test that I was talking about, right? In this test, right, a human questioner, a human being like us, right, will ask a question, right? For that question, a human being will respond and the AI system will respond, right? So the human questioner will decide whether the response is coming from the human or from the computer. If the human is not able to distinguish that, that means the AI system seems to have cracked it, right? As I said, it's not been beaten. Just to ensure the human being, that is the questionnaire, the person who is evaluating it, doesn't, doesn't think that, whether it is a human being or an AI system, the AI system and the human both respond through a computer, right? Just to ensure fairness in evaluation, right? So as I said, no one has beaten it. Even the Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant that we have, they are still not past it, right? They are not still operating at a level that that we will think that it is not these AI systems, but it is actually a human being that is responding to us, right? So we are not operating at that level, although many people have tried it, right? In fact, even in 2014, something was attempted, in the Europe, right, where someone claimed to have developed a system, and even judges felt that 33% of the judges, one-third of the judges felt it looked like human, right? But everyone is still skeptical, right? So this was known as the Eigen chatbot, right? Even that is not convincingly provided responses like human being, right? So this test still stays. So as I said, 70 years on, right? No one has developed an AI system which will be mistaken for a human being, right? That is where we are today. So if that is where we are today, then what is it that is happening in today's world, right? So what is the AI that is there in today's world, right? So let's understand two types of artificial intelligence, okay? Strong AI and weak AI. Strong AI is about computers thinking at the level of human beings, right? Like reasoning and thinking. We are not there yet. Okay. It is being attempted in many of the research institutions, right? It's in the realm of R&D, research and development. It is known as artificial general intelligence and artificial super intelligence. Okay. What is dominant today is what is called as weak AI. Okay. In weak AI, we are actually solving problems by detecting patterns. That's all we are doing today. And this is mainstream. What is mainstream? Which is, everyone is using to solve problems, right? So don't mistake weak AI, right? This weak can be a misnomer, so to say, because even with this so-called weak AI, uh, we are able to solve a lot of problems that exist in the world today, right? We are able to solve, we are able to detect diseases. Someone mentioned about, agriculture, about self-driving cars, right? So all of this are using uh, artificial intelligence, which is solving problems by detecting patterns. And this is the dominant mode of artificial intelligence today. Okay. So this gentleman is actually John McCarthy, right? As you can see, old computer of the 50s. He coined the term in 1957, right? So ever since that, a lot of advancements have taken place, which is why you and I are talking about AI, right? We are talking about developing an AI system, right? We are aspiring to solve business problems and problems faced by human beings using AI, right? So what is the AI we are going to use? It is weak AI, right? So do you understand the difference between weak and strong AI? Any questions? Let me stop for a moment.
I have a question about the Turing test.
Yes.
So wait, for the Turing test, do they actually use people who are like, like know a lot about AI, or like just regular people? Can regular people just do this test, like do the test?
See, why do you want people to know AI, right? Because that is sitting in the background. We are only responding with an AI system, through a front end, right? Because if you see the computer, so much is there inside, but you're
Yeah.
only accessing the front end, right? So you don't
Okay.
have to be an AI person. That is Shashank, right? Sorry, just to get the name. Who just asked the
Nitish.
question? Sorry?
Nitish.
Nitesh. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Just for 1 or 2 classes, and then I will remember your names. Okay. So, so you understand the strong and weak AI. This is a very important concept you need to understand, right? Because you may be talking to people saying, AI, right? So we are not talking of human kind of AI, strictly speaking, right? So weak AI, we are talking of what? 15 to 20% of human potential, right? That's where we are today. Still have another 80% to cross, right? I know there are a lot of movies made saying, AI is going to overtake and all that, right? Uh, we are far, far, far away from that, right? Because it's one thing to develop something in R&D, but it's totally another thing to develop a mass product, right? That is going to impact all of us. We are far, far away from that. But as I said, even with this, we are solving a lot of things. Okay, so there are two main goals in AI. Okay, someone asked, what is the goal of AI? It's to create really an expert system that behaves like human beings, right? That's our aspiration, right? Exhibits human behavior like learning, explaining, advising, and things like that, right? Some things that it can improvise on its own, right? So there are many applications of AI. We will continue to talk about that, right? Some of them are like uh, human language processing, right? You talk to a computer, the computer understands, and it talks back. It's used in gaming a lot, okay? It's used in robotics, right? It's used to create robots, and speech recognition, right? There's another thing called computer vision. We are going to see all of that, right? I'm sharing just to put things in perspective so you get an idea of the kind of applications that are possible, right? So all of you are aware of driverless cars, right? Anyone not heard about driverless cars here? I presume all of you have heard about driverless cars. Please raise your hand if you have not heard about driverless cars. Okay. So you all know about driverless cars, right? So the core technology is artificial intelligence, right? So which is why the automobile industry is now becoming tech. It's auto tech. It's no longer automobile industry, right? So we're going to see more of that. So it's used in healthcare, right? It's used in detecting fraud. Uh, as someone said, how do you think AI could be used in agriculture? Can anyone give insights on this? You understand about healthcare, you understand about fraud, right?
To see if the crops are healthy, if your plants are doing well, what's the best way to farm to get the most products?
Right. That is who just spoke.
Oh,
Okay. Right. Any other thoughts?
I think also detecting climate and like what's gonna actually.
Sorry, could you come closer to the mic if you don't mind?
Oh yeah. Basically the climate also.
Right. Climate. See, but actually speaking, in agriculture, the yield is a big deal, right? You sow crops, but at the end of it, you need to get yield, right? Be it rice or wheat, or any type of crop, right? It's a big deal. So you must know in what quantity the fertilizer feed need to be put, right? Where the seeds need to be sown. You have wind direction, you have weather. All of these are factors, right? So I'm trying to optimize so that my yield is maximized. So agriculture, it's used in a big way, okay, in driving things in agriculture, okay. Healthcare, can you give any examples from healthcare?
So based on the person's like blood pressure and any other like aspects, you can tell what kind of diseases they might have, or you can tell or based on what other people they might have similar type of body or something like that. You can use it to give a certain type of medication to them.
Right. Yep. So based on past, health details, I can tell what kind of diseases you're going to get in future, right? It's like you are having your car, right? And what if I can tell that your car is going to have a breakdown next month? How useful would that information be? So it's the same concept we are extending in healthcare as well, right? So I can tell what is the likelihood of you or any patient developing, say, a heart disease or a cancer. So in preventative healthcare, AI is playing a big role, right? We will talk about that, right? As we talk about algorithms, we will talk about all these opportunities, right? So start thinking about, what are the applications, right? So moving on, let's get into an important concept known as pattern recognition, right? Can anyone tell what is a pattern? An English word, right? What is a pattern?
something that repeats
Something
at
that is
some point.
good. What else? What is the pattern in your shirt or t-shirt or whatever you're wearing? Okay. What is the pattern? What's the pattern and whatever dress you're wearing? Is there a pattern?
Not on my shirt.
Sorry,
There's no pattern on my shirt.
there is some pattern, right? So pattern is everywhere. right? So what is a pattern? So pattern is something that repeats itself in a recognizable way. Okay, can be numbers, it can be images, can be alphabets, can be designs, right? So a pattern is a consistent recurring characteristic. Please remember this word, okay? It's a consistent recurring characteristic. And these three words, please remember it, okay? We're going to keep coming back to this many times, in the course of this program. It's a consistent recurring characteristic that helps us to identify a phenomenon, right? So there are patterns in nature, right? There are patterns in this. There is a pattern in this leaf. There is a pattern in this bead. What is the pattern? What is this pattern? Any of you are aware? Any of you aware? What is this pattern?
Is it a spiral?
Yeah, it's a spiral, no doubts, but more than that.
Is it like a loop?
Sorry?
A loop?
Sorry, I can't hear you. Can you come closer to the mic if you don't mind?
A loop?
A loop. Yeah, you can say that. More than that, because any pattern there is a loop, okay? Because it gets repeated. What else?
Fibonacci.
Right. How many of you have seen the movie or read the book Da Vinci Code? Right? It's a Fibonacci series. But numbers, follow a particular pattern and it gets repeated. Right? So patterns are everywhere, right? So we can recognize patterns. We can recognize patterns using our eyes, right? And in fact, a child can recognize familiar faces, a newborn child, by the 7th month, right? Caveman used patterns to distinguish between fight or flight response. Do you know what is a fight or flight response? Any of you?
Whenever you're in danger, would you want to go away or just like stay in it?
And fight, yeah. You either fought the enemy or you ran away from the enemy, right? So it is this inborn characteristic, right, that we are going to introduce in our software, right? That's why we are talking about pattern. So pattern recognition is our inborn characteristic, right? It's what makes us humans. And a child can recognize, what is the basis on which the child recognizes familiar faces? It is pattern recognition, right? A child recognizes faces based on the pattern, right? If it is a familiar pattern, it laughs. It's an unfamiliar pattern, the child cries, right? So it is this pattern, our ability to identify patterns, okay, so that I can use it in future. It is this that we are going to replicate in our software, okay? It is that what I called as, the dominant mode of AI is solving problems using pattern recognition, right? So if you see, all learning results from massive hierarchical and recursive process taking place in the brain, right? If let's say you take the act of reading, right? You first recognize letters, then words, then sentences, then paragraphs and things like that. So if a computer can be taught, right, to recognize these patterns, right, it can read and learn. So that's what we are going to do, right? So it is this inborn, human characteristic of understanding and decoding patterns, right? See, often pattern recognition has become part of us, right? It's intrinsic, right? You don't even recognize that you're recognizing a pattern, right? So if you see driverless cars, what is the pattern there? I start from home, I'm going to office, right? That's a pattern, right? I go through familiar roads, right? If I spot something, I know to apply brakes. That's a pattern, right? So I've learned it. If I spot someone, I must apply a brake. That's a pattern. So I'm teaching that pattern to my systems, software, and machines. That's why we are calling this as artificial intelligence, right? Because it's part of our human intelligence, ability to learn to identify patterns. And once you have learned, you use that pattern recognition, identification for future purposes, right? It is the same pattern recognition that I'm using in disease prediction. I'm using the same pattern recognition to identify defaulters. Let's say I'm a bank, okay? I have lent some money to you. I want to know which of my customers are not likely to pay me back so that I can go and take action. So how do I do it? I go about identifying patterns of defaulters, past defaulters. So what are the patterns they exhibited? So I use that. I develop the pattern, right? So the pattern will tell a person who exhibits these characteristics is likely to default. So in future, if I encounter a person with similar characteristics, the software will conclude this person is likely to be a defaulter, right? The same thing in disease. A person who is likely to develop heart disease will have high cholesterol, high BP, possibly high sugar, overweight, leading a sedentary life, maybe a smoker, maybe a drinker, right? So if my algorithm spots these patterns in future, it will flag that this individual is likely to develop heart disease, right? So you understand this concept of pattern recognition, how this is working. It's a human characteristic, right? In fact, it's a characteristic that the child learns as early as the 7th month, right? Perfects it, right? Because the child cries when there is an unfamiliar pattern. So it is this characteristic that you're going to introduce, make the computer learn, make the software learn. Any questions on this before I move to the other details?
You said we needed to remember like 3 words or something. What were those again? I kind of.
A pattern, consistent recurring characteristic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right. So can you tell me what is the pattern in this graph?
It's increasing every day.
It's increasing. What else?
It's cyclical.
Right. Cyclical then.
This sounds a little basic, but in a basic pattern kind of goes up, it peaks and then it goes back down every day, and then it
Correct.
goes back up and peaks.
That's cyclical. Yes, correct. You're right. What else? Let's go a little deeper. Yep. Anything else? Any other observations? Think. It's okay if it is wrong. Doesn't matter. We are here to learn.
I think it's peaking every like midday or so.
It's midday. No, see here, there's some January, July and all that, right?
Oh, okay, that's not okay.
Right, you need to see that. So you see this, it's peaking in July of every year, right? And the lowest point is in January of every year, right? And if you see, it is increasing at nearly the same rate every year. The peak is increasing at nearly the same rate. So can you see there are so many characteristics to a pattern? Yes, it is cyclical, right? Because only fewer data points are there, you are able to understand, right? Okay. So what if there are more data points? So what hardly about 5 to 12, 60 or 80 data points we are talking about, right? So even for this, we are struggling to identify patterns, right? Which is why when you let your software to uncover the patterns, it becomes easier for you, right? So this is an easier one. What is the pattern here? What are the next two words, next two numericals?
9 and 11.
9 and 11, right? Very easy one, right? We are talking of odd number, right? So it is this patterns that we are trying to uncover. In this is easier to uncover, whereas this one, we were not able to uncover that easily, right? You are not able to tell me that the lowest point is January. Every year, January, the lowest point is in January. Every year, the highest point is in July. Every year, it increases by nearly the same rate, right? So three distinct, and fourth is cyclical, right? Four distinct characteristics. While this one, you are able to answer because it is simple, right? Whereas this one, you're finding it difficult, even with 60 data points. Imagine if there are 600,000 data points. Imagine if there are 6 million data points. How will you identify patterns? That's real life, right? So that's why we make use of what is known as software, right? The machine learning software. We are going to see that in the next session, right? So we understand how pattern recognition helps. So I'm trying to identify patterns, right? It is a human characteristic because we are able to identify patterns, right? So I'm going to use this characteristic. I'm going to introduce this characteristic of identifying patterns in my software. I'm going to teach the software to learn to identify patterns. Once the software has learned to identify patterns, it can identify future similar patterns. And that's how I solve problems. Okay. So can anyone tell what is the difference between a strong AI and weak AI that we covered earlier?
Strong AI is more like a human-like, while weaker AI, it just helps us recognize patterns.
Right. And weak AI is the dominant mode of AI today. Right? So it is The dominant mode is AI. Dominant mode of AI is pattern recognition, right? So it is the weak AI. It is through this that we are trying to solve problems, right? What is a pattern?
It's a recurring, consistent characteristic.
Right? It's a recurrent, consistent characteristic. We are identifying patterns already, right? In our everyday life. So when you go change your shirt today, look for a pattern, right? Start looking for patterns around you, right? The process of getting up, and doing your everyday work, there are patterns involved, but it's become, intrinsic. It's become part of us. It's not something different, right? So it is that characteristic that we are going to introduce in our software and make the software learn the process of identifying patterns. So that's what is called as actually machine learning, right? We are making the software learn the process of identifying patterns on its own, right? So that's what we are going to see. So all the algorithms that we are talking about, it's about letting the software, learn the process of identifying patterns. Right? Any questions on what we have covered so far today? Any questions, any observations? Almost coming to the end of the class. Any questions? Feel free to ask. I think someone has joined that.
Yeah, Govind,
Jaya.
that's Jaya. That's right. Her son also was interested, so I think they're also listening for the first time today.
Okay, sure. So, so to sum up, right? AI is about a computer software that thinks and acts like human beings, right? We also learned about strong AI and weak AI. We also saw what is Turing test, right? It's a test to decide whether AI is really operating at the level of human beings, right? As I said, we are not there yet. And then we saw patterns, right? So that's what we wanted to cover in today's session. So we will continue this pattern recognition and see how it is used actually in machine learning. So that's what we are going to see in the subsequent session. What I want you to do, all of you to do, is identify one area, right, that excites you. Where do you want to apply AI, right? So identify one area where you want to personally, apply AI, one. And two, start looking for patterns. I want you to come and tell me what are the patterns you observed, right? After learning about this pattern recognition, what are the patterns you have observed, today and tomorrow? So two things you're going to do. One, you're going to pick an area where you want to really apply AI, right? I also want to hear from you why you have picked it. And second is, I want you to come and tell me what are the different patterns you have observed. Okay, so that's what you are going to do between today and tomorrow. Any questions? If there aren't any, I will hand it back to Ravi. Ravi, you want to add anything?
Great. So Jaya, Senthil, any other questions you might have in terms of the curriculum, feel free to ask Govind.
Hi, this is Jaya. Sorry, my son is at, he could not attend, but I'm the one who's attending. Sure. But this was a very informative session. What I wanted to know is how long is the whole program going to be for?
It's going to be for 2 months actually.
And it's starting tomorrow, right?
It's, from today, from whatever we covered.
Okay.
Right. So if let's say your son or daughter is joining, we will do a refresher, right? And we can share the recorded session as well. bring him or her up to speed.
Okay, okay. Yeah, they already know about this, about the machine learning, whatever, the pattern recognition. So
Mhm.
I think, yeah, recording should be good enough. So,
Yeah.
and so every day and for 2
Alternate,
months.
alternate. Monday,
Okay.
Wednesday, Friday.
All right. And what would be the project cover at the end?
See, the project, we will let the student, we will provide some broad guidelines, right? So we will work with the student and help them identify a project. So there are multiple areas in which this can be applied. So we will help that, we will do that in the course of the training itself.
Okay, okay. So it would be parallelly done, or would it
It
be
will
at
start
towards?
parallelly. It will start parallelly. The way we have structured is 5 weeks of training and about another 4 weeks of internship, right? Which is the project. But
Mhm.
project won't start right after the training. In fact, project will start during the training itself.
Okay.
Okay. So that extra month is for them, to clarify doubts, to improvise and everything.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. Welcome.
Hey, I have to jump into a meeting. It's a nice introduction, Govind. Is it okay if I call you sometime
Feel free.
early in your
Yeah,
day?
no problem. Feel free to do that.
Okay, sure.
Sure. You have my number, right, Senthil?
I think I wrote down. Let me just get it again.
I will put it in chat.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ravikant.
Thanks, Senthil, for coming in. Thank you.
Okay. Looks like we are good, Ravi.
Yeah, absolutely. I think let's connect after this, Govind, and for this week we'll announce a schedule.
Sure. We will do that.
Great. So thanks for joining, Om, Jaya, Nitish. And as I just said to Govind, we will actually confirm the days and that we'll continue with the exact time. That seems to be the right time for you guys. Just the days in terms of whether it's Tuesday, Thursday, or Saturday, we'll confirm that on the WhatsApp.
Okay. Sure. Thank you. Bye.